Imagine a football club so broke it couldn't keep its best player, yet so rich in history it's considered priceless. That's Barcelona for you, a club that's seen it all, from the highs of multiple Champions League wins to the lows of billion-euro debts. How does a club survive such extremes? Let's find out. Picture Barcelona in 1899. A bustling city with a passion for sports. Enter Johan Cruyff, a Swiss football enthusiast with a dream. He gathers a group of players from all over, Swiss, English, German, and Catalan. Together, they create FC Barcelona. Talk about a melting pot. These guys don't mess around. Barcelona quickly became a big deal in Spanish football. By 1928, they're founding members of La Liga. Pretty impressive, right? But here's the kicker. All this success came with a price tag, a really big one. You see, Barcelona's story isn't just about trophies, it's about surviving the ups and downs that come with being more than just a club. Now, we're into the dark days. Imagine your favorite club becoming public enemy number one. That's exactly what happened to Barcelona during Franco's reign. But here's the thing, instead of crumbling, they got stronger. How? Well, it's a wild ride involving politics, language, and some seriously angry fans. Barcelona's story isn't just about football, it's about survival, identity, and standing up for what you believe in. During Franco's dictatorship, the club faced some serious heat. We're talking about a time when speaking Catalan could get you in big trouble. But Barcelona? They weren't backing down. Let's talk about 1936. Barcelona's president, Josep Sunyol, was murdered by Francois soldiers. It's a dark moment that defined the club's future. From that point on, Barcelona wasn't just playing football, they were fighting for Catalan identity. You see, Barcelona's stadium became one of the few places where Catalans could express themselves freely. Where the government banned the Catalan language, guess where the people went to speak it? Yep, the football stadium. It was like a secret clubhouse for an entire culture. But that's not all. In 1925, the crowd at a Barcelona match booed the Royal March. The government's response, they closed the stadium for 6 months. Barcelona's president, Johan Cruyff, had to step down. Talk about a tough crowd, right? This is where Barcelona's famous motto comes in. Més que un club. More than a club. It's not just a catchy phrase, it's a promise. A promise to stand for something bigger than football. To represent the hopes and dreams of an entire people. But being a symbol isn't always easy. Barcelona's membership skyrocketed from 3,500 during the Civil War to over 30,000 in the 1950s. People weren't just joining a football club, they were joining a movement. You might be thinking, well, that's great and all, but how does this affect the actual football? Well, it's complicated. Barcelona's political history has influenced everything from how they're managed to who they sign. Some presidents have been accused of caring more about money than tradition. It's led to some pretty heated arguments within the club. The rise of the Dream Team. Speaking of pressure, Barcelona was about to face its biggest test yet. Imagine a club in turmoil, players in revolt and fans losing faith. Now picture a familiar face returning to it all around. Sound like a Hollywood script? It's just another chapter in Barcelona's wild ride. The 1980s weren't kind to Barcelona. Under President Josep Luis Núñez, the club was struggling. Things got so bad that in 1988, the players decided they'd had enough. Ever heard of the Hesperia mutiny? It's not some pirate story, but it's just as dramatic. Picture this, April 28th, 1988. The majority of the team and manager Luis Aragonés gathered at Hesperia Hotel. They're not there for a party. They're there to demand better wages and respect. It's a full-on revolt against Núñez's management style. Talk about a wake-up call. Núñez realized he needed to make a change, and fast. Enter Johan Cruyff. Remember him? He had left Barcelona as a player because of Núñez's policies, but now he's coming back as manager. It's like bringing your ex to a family reunion. Awkward, but potentially game-changing. Cruyff wasn't just there to coach, he had a vision. He wanted to build something special, focusing on youth development and tactical innovation. It wasn't an overnight success, but when it clicked, boy did it click. From 1991 to 1994, Barcelona won 4 consecutive La Liga titles. But that's not all. In 1992, they won their first ever Champions League title. This team became known as the Dream Team, And let me tell you, they lived up to the name. The Dream Team wasn't just about star power. It was the perfect mix of local talent and international superstars. You had guys like Pep Guardiola, yes, that Pep Guardiola, played alongside Ronald Koeman, Risto Stoichkov, and Michael Laudrup. It was like assembling the Avengers but for football. Now let's talk about La Masia. No, it's not a fancy Spanish restaurant. It's Barcelona's youth academy. Established as a dormitory for young players in 1979, it became the secret weapon in Cruyff's arsenal. La Masia churned out local talent that would become the backbone of the first team. Ever heard of Xavi and Iniesta? Yep, La Masia graduates. But even dream teams have their nightmares. Despite all the success, Cruyff and Nunez were like oil and water. Their relationship was rocky at best. After a trophy drought in his final seasons, Cruyff left in 1996. It was the end of an era, but the impact of his tenure would be felt for decades. You see, Cruyff didn't just bring success to Barcelona, he brought an identity, a way of playing that polarized youth development and attacking football. It was more like he wrote Barcelona's DNA, and this new genetic code would produce some of the greatest teams in football history. The Dream Team era was over, but Barcelona's story was far from finished. In fact, the club was about to embark on its most remarkable chapter yet. How does a team go from financial ruin to global domination in just a few years? Let's find out. Enter Joan Laporta, a charismatic leader with a vision. In 2003, he inherited a club drowning in 86 million euros of debt. The atmosphere was toxic and fans were losing hope, but Laporta had a plan. He wasn't just going to save Barcelona, he was going to transform it. First order of business, get the finances in order. Laporta went to work, slashing the wage bill and renegotiating contracts. It wasn't pretty, but it was necessary, and boy, did it pay off. Over the next 8 years, Barcelona's revenue skyrocketed from 123 million euros to a whopping 400 million euros. Talk about a comeback. But Laporta knew that financial stability was only part of the equation. He needed to bring the magic back to the pitch. His solution? Frank Rijkaard. The appointment of the Dutch manager marked the beginning of a new era for Barcelona. Suddenly, the club was attracting international stars like Ronaldinho, Deco, and Samuel Eto'o. But that's not all. Homegrown talents like Xavi and Iniesta were blossoming into world-class players. And then there was Lionel Messi. You have heard of him. As Barcelona rose from the ashes, so did this young Argentine. His development mirrored the club's resurgence, and before long, he was being hailed as one of the greatest footballers of all time. Now let's talk about 2009. If you're a Barcelona fan, this year probably brings a smile to your face. If you're not, well, you might want to skip this part. Barcelona achieved something no Spanish club had ever done before. They won the treble. La Liga, Copa del Rey, and UEFA Champions League. The cherry on top, they beat Manchester United 2-0 in the Champions League final, announcing to the world that Barcelona was back and they meant business. Let's not forget about El Clásico. The rivalry with Real Madrid reached new heights during this period. Remember the 6-2 victory at the Santiago Bernabeu in 2009? It wasn't just a win, it was a statement. Barcelona wasn't just competing with Real Madrid, they were dominating them. The success on the pitch translated to success off it. Barcelona's brand became global. Sponsorships poured in, merchandise sales went through the roof, and suddenly that $86 million debt seemed like a distant memory. Financial troubles and scandals. Barcelona had reached this summit. From the view from the top, it can be deceiving. What if the very success that defined the club was built on a house of cards? Let's peel back the curtain on the financial troubles and scandals that threatened to bring this football giant to its knees. Remember Joan Gaspart? He became Barcelona's president in 2000, and things went downhill fast. The club's finances took a nosedive, and they couldn't win any major titles. Gaspart's big signings didn't work out, and the debt kept piling up. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. But that's not all. The atmosphere at the club turned toxic. Remember Luis Figo? He left Barcelona for Real Madrid, and fans saw it as the ultimate betrayal. It's like your best friend running off with your arch nemesis. Not a good look. Roll on to 2014, and we got Josep Maria Bartomeu in charge. You'd think Barcelona would have learned its lesson, right? Wrong. the financial situation got even worse. By 2021, the club's debt was over 1 billion euros. That's not a typo, billion, with a B. How does that even happen? Well, it turns out paying ridiculous wages and making poor player investments isn't a great financial strategy. Who knew? By 2003, Barcelona's wage bill was eating up over 80% of its income. That's like spending most of your paycheck on lunch every day. It doesn't leave much room for anything else. Now let's talk about Neymar transfer scandals. This wasn't just a bad deal, it was a full-blown controversy. There were undisclosed payments, mismanaged funds, and even legal investigations. It was like something out of a crime thriller, but with more footballs. You see, Barcelona's financial troubles weren't just about numbers on a spreadsheet, they had real consequences. In 2021, the unthinkable happened. Lionel Messi, the heart and soul of Barcelona, for 21 years left the club. Why? Because Barcelona couldn't afford to keep him within La Liga's financial rules. It was like watching your favorite TV show get canceled because the studio ran out of money. In 2021, Joan Laporta came back as president. His job? To clean up the mess. But he wasn't just dealing with a bit of red ink. He had to manage a debt of over 1 billion euros and a wage bill that was higher than the club's income. It's like trying to bail out the Titanic with a teaspoon. Laporta's solution? Sell off future revenues from assets to get some quick cash. It's like a bit like selling your future paychecks to pay today's bills. Some people weren't too happy about this. They worried it could lead to even bigger problems down the road. So what's the real cost of being the best? For Barcelona, it was nearly everything. They went from the top of the world to losing their greatest player ever. It's a stark reminder that in football, as in life, what goes up must come down. And sometimes the fall is harder than you could ever imagine. You'd think losing your greatest player and facing €1 billion debt would be game over for most clubs. But Barcelona isn't most clubs. How does a team rebuild when it's already hit rock bottom? The answer might surprise you. Enter Joan Laporta, back in the president's chair in 2021. He's not just here to balance the books. He's here to save Barcelona's soul. And let's be real, he's got his work cut out for him. Imagine walking into your dream job only to find out you're now responsible for a €1 billion debt. Oh, and your wage bill? It's higher than your income. Talk about a rough first day. So what's Laporta's grand plan? Well, it's a bit like selling your future paychecks to pay today's bills. Barcelona sold 10% of their La Liga TV rights for the next 25 years. It's a quick cash grab, but some folks are worried it could lead to bigger problems down the road. But Laporta's not just focused on the money. He's going back to Barcelona's roots. Remember La Masia, the youth academy that gave us Xavi and Iniesta? It's back in the spotlight. Laporta's betting big on homegrown talent to reduce those expensive signings. Now you might be thinking, well, that's great, but can they still compete? Well, guess what? Barcelona won La Liga in the 2022 and 23 season. It's like they're saying, financial crisis? Hold my cerveza. But here's the thing. Barcelona's story isn't just about trophies or money, it's about identity. Can they keep their "Més que un club" spirit while fighting off financial ruin? It's like trying to keep your cool while your house is on fire. From the murder of club president Josep Sunyol by Franco's soldiers to the bombing of their offices during the Spanish Civil War, but through it all, they've never been relegated from La Liga. Talk about resilience. The club's commitment to Catalan culture runs deep. They even changed their official language to Catalan. It's like they're waving a flag with every match they play. Financial mismanagement and political turmoil have rocked the boat more than once, yet somehow Barcelona always finds a way to bounce back. So what's next for this football powerhouse? Well, only time will tell, but one thing's for sure, Barcelona's story is far from over.
Like and subscribe.